Hey, Lotus Globe here, July 8th, 2020, and you probably are well aware that yesterday Mars and Chiron just came into a conjunction together. As you're also aware too, um, there's been a lot of Aries action with, unlike anything I've ever seen before in astrology. And there's definitely a period right now where there is going to be a need to really connect with the the primitive creative fire that exists within Aries, and also just restoring the sacred masculine into culture. Up until now, obviously the focus has been on, resurrecting the divine and sacred feminine in nature. But now recently, it's been brought to my attention on Facebook that, there's at least one group now that I just joined recently that focuses on the evolved man. And I think that more and more groups like that are going to be seen in 2020 as now a way of catching up with a lot of the rampant activity from the last 5 years at least of just the feminine polarity, trying to break itself free of years of oppression and silencing, as far as the power of her all-encompassing energy in giving and taking life, and just the controlling the cycles of nature. So as you can see, I was definitely prepared to bring out the wild tiger in me for this video, because this video is also going to focus on a very hot, spicy goddess in astrology, and I'm referring to Lilith. Now, Lilith is a very curious and very esoteric aspect of the chart that focuses on, the the suppressed urges, that could be associated with the id. I know that sounds an awful lot like Pluto's realm and Scorpio in the eighth house. However, Lilith also brings an archetypal structure to those subterranean psychic energies that exist, in the realm of the invisible, that exists beyond the five senses. So, and obvious, if you're even the slightest bit aware of Lilith in Christian theology, she was she was the first woman to have been created, not Eve. Eve was actually a tangent that was, that resulted as a branching off of Adam. Just the whole story of how she was made from Adam's rib and all that. Lilith, on the other hand, was created from the same black earth that Adam was created from. And so there's a sense of equality, and also a great sense of opposition, in the sense that both of these figures have a strong will of their own. Lilith, is basically the, dark, passionate, id-like energy of Adam, who obviously was the one who wanted to be on top in matters of sex. She wanted to be the one who was very, very much the aggressor, the dominatrix type, and yet she's a very, very fascinating woman. Also also a big part of the reason why I find redheads to be so delicious. But, anyways, so of all the uh, of all the activity that's been going on with Aries, with Mars and with Chiron, especially now with that conjunction going on, um, I think those elements right there are the arrows that are going to point us now in the direction of Lilith, as she now is coming into Aries. Now, I myself have had Lilith in Gemini in my natal chart. That's my natal Lilith. So I always knew personally um, that as far as Lilith's influence on that sign, that there's obviously been, a lot of blockage as far as like the communication of words and ideas. And since we're talking about Lilith here, it's and as far as Gemini goes, just the ability to have a certain flair, or finesse or suaveness, as far as like having a way with words, to really, really, play a woman's heartstrings just perfectly. Yeah, I mean, there definitely was, a lot of processing with Lilith and that particular archetype, with mutable air. Now with Chiron and Aries, this is actually helping to kind of forward that, to forward that initial initial imprint of dark energy that Lilith had impressed into that sign, and now bringing more of a strong will and an increase in confidence, and a diminishment of guilt, as far as taking action and responsibility for the things that feel right to you, the things that give you justification to stand up for a certain ideal or belief. So yeah, anyways, so that's going to be the focus for Aries today, and Lilith's connection. So in order to do that, I think we need to really understand how Lilith actually works in the 21st century, how her archetype has actually, been seen in the course of history, especially since the dawn of the 21st century, in this new millennium, with, just all sorts of, crazy, uncontrollable urges going on in the collective right now. And again, this need to really, really, find and create a harmony between men and women, to not, to completely deconstruct this whole patriarchy, this whole patriarchy structure, and form of, totalitarian control that, the government, of course, has enforced so much over the years, and obviously, just hitting a real breaking point right now with Trump being in office, and just all sorts of injustice going on in the world, and a cry to find some real leadership in this country. That all plays into it as well. So, and so this leads into, how Lilith can be a savior and a redeemer in these hard times right now. So to really, really understand Lilith, I'm going to be going into a little bit about alchemy here, which is talked about in these two books. So you're probably familiar with these particular illustrations here. So in alchemy, there's, this image right here. So this is referred to as the Mercurial Fountain. And now the Mercurial Fountain is basically the container, for which the black earth exists, or the decaying, mud within the vestibule of the body. And, so this is where, a lot of sexual passion lies dormant. So, at the lowest possible frequency, the flame of Lilith is buried in this mud, this muddy vestibule, and you basically have an emotional blindness. You're not able to see with your own inner eyes. You're not able to perceive the subtle energy field of other living beings, and so as a result, it's like going to a beach, going to an area where there's a lot of social activity, can be very, very overwhelming, especially when you find yourself in the presence of what I call the Sea of Eves here. And I made this diagram to kind of illustrate what I mean about that. So the Sea of Eves is this three-dimensional energy field that is orange in color, and it obviously radiates the incredible fire of creative spark, that obviously when Lilith is repressed on that low level, that subterranean level, underneath the chakra system itself, that the Kundalini flame basically, feels like it's, in one way, it is buried, and it's also simultaneously leaking out too, and that's because, a person's auric bubble, is, not functioning. Its systems are down, and so what happens then is, this tends to bring out, these little black furry beings, that exist within, the bodies of the people that are on that beach, particularly, if you're coming across a very attractive woman who's wearing a bikini thong, or just a woman who's just showing off a lot of skin, what happens is the black mud of decay that exists, on that low frequency level is also tapped into on that level in a way that comes unexpectedly and unintentionally. And usually when that happens, obviously the usual masculine stance for being solid, stable, contained, and being emotionally cool-headed in the face of conflict, or just being cool-headed, and enjoying the ambience around him, enjoying the beautiful, erotic, colorful energy, of just the sense of community and the patchwork of cultural variety that everybody brings when they come down to the beach, for example. It all becomes this messy blur. And what happens is, when you are on that level, in which the flame is buried underneath that black earth, you start bringing out, these furry, hairy demons. And I'm not talking about demons necessarily as being bad or evil. I'm talking more as just like, the dead, hidden, suppressed, shadowy aspects of other people. Again, referring back to the id in people, that reservoir of urges that, just kind of, is sloshing back and forth, and has no outlet. And that, again, comes back to the Mercurial Fountain, too, So, I mean, that black mud, moves in a circular direction, but it obviously has no outlet. It just remains inert within its own time circle, So, and when that happens, of course, and you find yourself unable to really express yourself in a very emotionally cool-headed way, then instead, what happens is that wet, stagnant sensation that you experience down in your belly, which, can manifest itself physically as, gastrointestinal symptoms, or, like other sorts of stomach problems, bloating, heaviness, stuck or leaky stools, fatigue, just all manner of digestive problems, that all that is basically the result of a passive solar plexus chakra and an eroded, flooded, bloated sacral chakra. Now think about what this means when I say that. Because the sacral chakra's element is water, right? And what happens is that, and this is basically where I'm talking about, where the flame of Lilith gets stuck, is because those emotions that are undigested in that area start to create this massive tide that that tends to blot out the illumination that the fire of Lilith is supposed to create, and therefore help the the solar plexus chakra to function perfectly. Since fire is definitely the element of the solar plexus chakra. Now, as a result of a heavy sacral chakra, what do you think happens to the root chakra? Well, that also, feels really, really heavily weighed down on, and when you exist in this state, especially when you're experiencing sexual overwhelm, like if you're attracted to a woman's ass, for example, your mind, you know, is so intensely focused on that woman's ass that it's like nothing else, no other thoughts can really flow through the mind, because, you know, you're so immersed in that image, that image, you know, of wanting to touch and, you know, to be absorbed in that erogenous zone that you're so turned on by, you know, because, you know, that's just what goddess energy is. You know, it's very lunar, and it's Venetian, you know, both you know, planetary spheres that also rule over you know, the digestive tract, and, you know, the bladder and the kidneys, all those, you know, digestive organary functions that help, you know, to, you know, basically stay healthy, and you know, be able to feel, you know, a sense of lightness and upbeatness, you know. So yeah, and then what happens is, you know, there's, you know, you find yourself getting completely, you know, just so submerged in 3D reality as a result of that. So now, also, by the way, I should also touch on the fact that, you know, what's often perceived as beautiful then is really perceived in a half-life at this level, you know, with this really muddy, damp, stagnant combination of, you know, water and earth pertaining to the first and second chakras. So what's considered as beautiful is really just a fractured holographic, you know, fragment giving off the illusion of wholeness through through that person's allure. The black mud of decay, you know, is the dampened ashes of sweat and excretionary toxins that live inside their sexualized bodies. So I mean, it's like you're no longer just, you know, feeling your own emotions, but you're getting completely submerged in other people's emotions too, and it becomes a very muddy mess, you know, in which, you know, obviously, since, you know, each chakra operates on, you know, a complementary level, the sacral chakra, you know, is experiencing problems as far as, you know, being able to feel and to direct those feelings up to a level of clairvoyant perception. So then this way too, the third eye is being blocked, and, you know, it becomes difficult to be able to perceive what is other in a very separate and structured and compartmentalized sort of manner, so that you can experience, you know, companionship with the other in a way in which you can still maintain your integrity while also being able to welcome, you know, new variety, and be impressed, you know, with new imprints of experiences that the other person is sharing with you, you know, through their own lens of experience. So now, the solution to working with Lilith here, and to directing that flame, that Kundalini flame, up through the chakras, is illustrated perfectly in these two illustrations right here. Now this one right here, this is the point in the alchemical process And I think this is what is called sublimation, is where the king and the queen here represent the opposites, the opposites as illustrated by the solar and the lunar principles. You can see the sun and the moon images exactly. And the dove flying overhead between the two is, I think what I would consider to be like, the sign of Scorpio right there, that during that process of transformation when, the after the scorpion transforms into the serpent, and then becomes completely changed in its experience through the depths of psychological process. It emerges and ascends as this beautiful dove, just flying and spiraling overhead. So that's where this image comes into play here. And that's also why I had illustrated here through these eyes that have a lavender color to them. This is the point where, like, when you're gazing into another person's eyes with unconditional love, that other person opens up to you as a portal, and whatever sort of fantasies or preconceived notions you had about the other person, they all just evaporate now, as the need to really connect with another person starts to happen. Of course, the king and the queen are still clothed, to show off their social roles here, and this would, basically be, second level anima development, according to Jung's, model, the 4-step model of anima development. Though it would also be a merging of the first level of anima development, which deals with the, actual erotic fascination with another person. Then, of course, in this picture, they're both completely nude at this point, and they're also grabbing onto this branch that the dove is bringing down, and this is basically where, the fire of Lilith penetrates right through into the third chakra, the solar plexus chakra. And again, just referring back to this book here, there's also the same illustrations here, described a little bit differently, but, the same baseline is there, and, so it's obviously, you've obviously got subtitles here to describe each one of these. So, like I said before, this is the Mercurial Fountain, and then you have the King and the Queen, and then the Naked Truth. So these first 3 levels here are this process of, of Lilith, rising up through the first 3 chakras. It's definitely, in the solar plexus chakra that you can start to feel vulnerable, while also maintaining a certain status quo that you choose for yourself. And, that's definitely something that, makes you feel very, very ennobled and very, very strong within yourself. And, as a result of that, the ascension through the other chakras becomes a lot more natural than when the flame of Lilith has penetrated through the solar plexus chakra. Because then at that point, you're no longer experiencing the passions and, the uncontrollable id-like urges as something that's existing outside of you, because now you're basically riding on top of that dragon, this is the point where it's like you merge with that darkness, and then you become that light that comes out of all that through personal experience. So, as I had written here, Lilith appears as the light inside flesh when you emit enough creative energy from simmering the mud down with a gentle flame. She becomes the portal into life where all gray clouds disappear to reveal blue sky. And I believe I did talk about that too when I was discussing, the tarot cards, especially the Fourth of Cups, with the pink lotus, and the Four Cups being full of the water of life, but there's also these gray clouds that are overhead, so there's kind of that, there's kind of that caution that takes place when you experience, when you experience that sense of richness that comes out of, just having a great container for your emotions. And that's obviously what we had when the moon was in Cancer, But just recently now we had our full moon, over the 4th of July, which was this last weekend, and that was when the moon had entered into Capricorn. So now at this stage, and now, just tying into, what I had talked about in my last video with Capricorn, and its exaltation in Mars, like the Capricorn, the goat archetype, the archetype of Pan, is, definitely comes out very, very strong here now, especially when talking about this full moon that we had recently, because now this is where, those dark clouds of uncertainty really part, and rather than feeling, just alone and, comforting and sedating yourself to the extreme, at its worst, with your own feeling toned images and fantasies of how you want the world to be around you. Now this is the time with, the buck moon, as it was called, with Capricorn, to really take action, to direct those emotions past that threshold between imagination and logic, and just allowing your passions to really, really shine brightly in all their radiant beauty. So and yeah, this is also, where you get a greater control over gravity in this case too, because the six directions, so north, south, east, west, above, and below, they start to, come together as a cohesive whole to create that geometric structure that becomes the framework for which, reality starts to really, really, become yours to claim, to become your piece of property to own, and, to determine your own rules by, which is obviously essential too, when you are seeking companionship, is knowing yourself, knowing what you really want, and, working with with Lilith, who really is a very, masculine force, a fully embodied animus figure, to put it in Jungian terms, that really, really knows what she wants and wants the real thing too. She doesn't want anything, that's superficial, so it's like she definitely embodies gravity, and, so this is actually what makes me think now about this video that I had watched, that from that Evolved Men Facebook video, where the modern man, not surprisingly, is actually very, very empty, and only starts to feel alive around the presence of a beautiful woman. And that's where that sexual energy, really opens up, the fires of intuition, where, a man really starts to feel aware, the tiger starts to really, really come out of the, out of the meadow and enters into society with, with a real, direction, a real pull towards someone that helps to give him, a sense of autonomy and structure. But there's still that problem, with social dissonance too, because, each person, the other person that a man is attracted to has their own set of survivalist beliefs and values that they hold locked in their bottom three chakras. So, and it's directing, that energy, that accumulated energy, upwards into the heart chakra, where things get a little bit cryptic, and as I've learned now in working with Tantra, the key, of course, is the breath, because the breath is a very, very living element, as it kind of contains its own set of hands that push through the weight, that dross created by the black mud of decay, and by pushing that weight, from the inside out, it creates that fluid animation of the creative fire to give breath to the voice. And obviously the voice is very, very essential when we're, speaking from the heart. I mean, what is it? I mean, obviously the all too often used phrase, the eyes are the window to the soul and the voice is the window to the heart. I'm literally saying that when I'm talking about, that next step in directing Lilith's flame up now from the solar plexus into the heart chakra, and so of course the challenge then when merging with Lilith, as she now becomes manifest in the form of this woman that I'm attracted to, is first of all to disidentify with, all the years of capitalist manufactured images and advertising, from Victoria's Secret or Elle magazine, or the thousands of porn videos and images that I've flooded my senses with over the years, breaking through that wall, and instead, now at this point, creating, a balanced weaving of branches between two souls on the ascending tree of the fountain. It's when you break through all those commodified images that society has created to distort the real image of the feminine, and to experience the feminine without any pretext, and to only to come up with the pretext later, that's when you start emerging then into 4D reality. That's when that experience that you have where time just disappears, like tempus fugit or tempus fugit, time escapes, and everything just becomes circular now. Everything just becomes, this infinite, unbroken circle. This is when you experience the light within Lilith. The light in the underneath the darkness of that flame, the light at the core, and then expanding on that light. That's when, the king and the queen in the image of the naked truth, they both grab onto the branch. They both, not exactly clinging onto the branch, but, just gripping the branch with mutual consent and experiencing a love that can only just be described as, just, constantly evolving and weaving, just like the branches on a tree. And that's when, that above and below, that merging of above and below happens. Because, at this stage, the Mercurial Fountain is still acknowledged. It's just now, that lone soul that was existing in the mire of his creativity, is now able to merge with, the image of his beloved. And it's at that point, as you can see, that the dove descends now to where basically, the above and the below become one. And so, that's my rant about Lilith. And like I said, she's definitely a mind-blowing woman, once you really get familiar with her in astrology, that's for sure. She definitely, can, give you, just this incredible orgasm that masturbation can't even really give you, because it's much bigger than that. Like, it's like your skin feels kissed all over in the presence of Lilith. And I think now, thanks to Mars, coming into contact with Lilith as of this transit right now, and going on all the way into December of this year, early January of next year, there's no longer going to be any need or any excuse to stay quiet about what it is that you feel, driven by. And I guess I just hope that other people can awaken the tiger within them as well, too. As a side note, that's my Chinese zodiac sign, too, by the way. 86 was the year I was born, so naturally I'm a tiger. But, You know, I'm a very, very hungry tiger when he's really feeling love. Okay. Obviously, I don't want to be a one-man show here. I hope you've been entertained by this forecast to some degree, and yeah, um, it's time now to empower yourself with Lilith, and we'll see what happens now in the next video. Ciao.